I won't share you. But I don't want to choose between you two. Well then okay, we'll share. Hey everyone, today we are going through all the books I read in June, so if you want to see what I thought about each of them, stay tuned. So the first books I read were the Kindred Curses Saga by Penn Cole, which is Spark of the Everflame, Glow of the Everflame, and Heat of the Everflame. This series follows Diem, a mortal healer living in a world ruled by descendants of gods. When her mother disappears, she becomes caught up in political unrest, dangerous secrets, and a conflict that could change both mortals and the descended. I gave Spark 4.5 stars, Glow 4.5 stars, and then Heat 3.5 stars. The series started really strong for me, and I really enjoyed Diem at the beginning, but as the series went on, she just didn't seem to grow based on her experiences and like what's happened to her, and she kind of stayed like naive. The beats of the books were very much the same in every book, and then in book 3 is where it started getting really bad, because book 3 was basically 3 books mashed into one. It had 3 parts, all with three very distinct plot lines. And then Luther by book 3 just feels like a whole different character. He feels like he lost his autonomy. So I'm gonna pick up book 4 when it comes out, if it ever comes out. But I'm probably not gonna rush to pick it up as soon as it's released. The next book I read was Woman on Fire by Lisa Barr. This is a mystery thriller historical book of a journalist who is searching for a Nazi looted painting of a famous fashion designer's mother. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this book, and the characters played their parts really well. The antagonist, I wanted to slap her more times than not, but also I could see how she ended up being the antagonist and like what happened to her in her past. Ellis, the fashion designer, is just such a sweet old man, and I was crying for him. This does have LGBT representation, by the way. It was a bit slow for me for like a thriller to be labeled a thriller. I would label it more as a mystery, but I also don't read a ton of historical, so it might be kind of like the history parts that made it go too slow for me. I then read Above by Bria Lamb. This follows our main character, Nova, who was gifted magic by the stars, even though she does not come from a magical family. She wants to attend the elite academy so that she can extend the lives of her parents and her sister to match her new life like length. But the purists at the academy don't think someone who comes from of Edie, which is from a non-magical family, should be at the elite academy where they are granted more magic by the stars. I gave this one 4.5 stars. It was my favorite book of the month. The second book is releasing at the end of July, and I cannot wait. I'm so excited to read it, and I will probably reread Above in July. It did take me a bit to get into, like in the intro and like the setup, but by the time we reached the academy, I was all for it. It is a dystopian fantasy with multiple worlds that are all different, with different technology, different races, and it was so interesting learning about that. And then there are stars, not gods. The stars want to be entertained, and that's a big line throughout the whole book. Oh my god, the end though. The end, I was crying. If you read this book, like, let me know down below or DM me somewhere so we can scream about the ending. Please. I really just want the second book to be released now. Like, right now. Please. The next book I read was Second Story Bookshop by Denise Hunter. This is a contemporary romance who follows a woman who inherits a struggling bookshop. It's also a second chance romance. I gave this book 4 stars. It was a sweet, clean romance. I realized why there was zero spice in the book after I read the book and I was doing a little bit more research on it. It is by I don't know if the author's Christian, but it's published by a Christian publishing company. But there's no mention of religion or anything like that in the book. It was just a nice, sweet romance. The next one is The Girl Who Bit Me by Valerie Hunter. I DNF'd this book. I'll just say that up front. This is a paranormal romance who follows 2 vampires who have been friends for 600 years. They're currently broke and working on a get-rich-quick program in New York City when Sylvia bites Aster and a soulmate bond is formed. Like I said, this was a DNF for me. I can't pinpoint why. I wanted to love this book a lot. I mean, sapphic vampires, I wanted it so badly. But I couldn't get into it. I think maybe I was starting to fall into a reading slump when I was reading it, and because it was such a slower book, it couldn't keep me entertained enough. I might try the book again in the future, though, because I mean sapphic vampires. Then I read Of Silver and Curses by Maddox Gray. I was gifted an arc of this. It was released last year. I finally got to the arc. This fantasy follows Scythe and Tal, whose sisters are in a sapphic relationship, and they go missing. Tal then goes to find Scythe in her woods, which she hasn't left in hundreds of years. And they have to put aside their feelings for each other to try and find their sisters. I gave this book 3.5 stars. There was a lot that could have been done that I would have appreciated more. It's a dark romantasy with 2 very, very morally gray characters. The 2 main characters are very morally gray. They do not have a problem killing someone if they're in their way. One of the things I didn't like was fake dating trope was set up, but then basically canceled out a chapter later, which I love fake dating. I love fake dating. If the fake dating trope had even lasted just a few more chapters, I think this book would have gotten a higher rating. There is serious LGBT plus rep through the entire book. Tal is non-binary. Like I said, there's a sapphic relationship, and there's more just sprinkled through the book like it's normal, like it should be. Then I binged the 3 released books of the Bloodwing Academy series by Briar Bolin. This is a romantasy, dark-ish romantasy, maybe? That follows a half-fae Medra who was found by Blake, the high-blood vampire prince, and brought into the court. Blake's uncle then reveals that Medra is a dragon rider and betroths Medra and Blake together without consent from anyone except himself, and sends Medra to the Bloodwing Academy, which is full of vampires and mortals. The first book, On Wings of Blood, I gave 4.5 stars. Second book, The Bond That Burns, I also gave 4.5 stars. And then, yes, I actually gave all 3 books 4.5 stars. The Wings That Bind also got 4.5 stars. I read all 3 of these books in about 6 days. And I picked them up. As soon as I finished one, I picked up the next one. The plot, the push, the pull, the banter, the characters, I adored them. And the biggest thing, Medra learns. And she changes how she acts. She changes through the book series. She doesn't stay naive to the world. I'm looking at you, DM. Medra doesn't just turn a blind eye to all the morally gray things that Blake does. She pushes back and wants him to become a better person. And she doesn't approve of everything, even if she might find it, a little bit of a turn on. She doesn't approve of everything he does. It is an academy setting, enemies to lovers, a bully-ish romance that's not heavy bullying, but there is bully between the two love interests, and there's a found family in it. I think if you like Zodiac Academy, you would really like this book series. I do want to read the prequel series, but Medra's named Morgan in that book, but it says it's the prequel of what happens before she attends Bloodwing Academy. The last book I read was Kiss of the Basilisk by Lindsay Straub. Okay. This is a dark fantasy romance that follows Tim, who has never been kissed, but is now being trained by the Basilisks to be the perfect seductor and win the hand of marriage from the human prince. She then quickly finds herself caught between the two worlds, the humans and the Basilisks. I gave this book 2 stars. I don't know if I've ever given a book 2 stars, like an actual novel 2 stars. This is a one and done. I'm not continuing the series. It was a weird book. It was weird. It was very much a smutty book, which I was not expecting when I started it. It took me 4 days to finish, which you might be like, well, Bethany, you flew through that then. Like, that's really good. Except it felt like 3 weeks. The pacing was too slow, but it also felt too fast. It seemed to skip days at a time with no, what happened during that time. Not even just I continued to do my chores and go see whatever his name is. I don't even remember the 2 love interests' names anymore. I won't share you, but I don't want to choose between you two. Well then, okay, we'll share. There were a lot of times I was really close to DNFing this book, and at 89% when that was my final, I'm done with this book. I just went ahead and pushed through, got to the end, and discovered that the author had written an entirely alternate ending that is not canon and is not going to be part of the plot in book 2 or anything, and I didn't even finish that. I just was done at that point. I read some reviews of the second book and decided I'm DNFing the series. I'm not picking up the second book. I don't want to. If you want a book that is gleefully unhinged, I suggest looking elsewhere. On that note, that wraps up June's reading. Don't worry, I have a slightly unhinged book that I am just finishing up for July that I am enjoying a lot more. June was a really successful reading month. I ended up reading 12 books, finishing 11. I read 5,612 pages, listened to 78.5 hours worth of audiobooks, and ended up with an average rating of 4 stars. Most importantly, I avoided a reading slump, and I found a new favorite above. Let me know in the comments what you thought of my June reading, what you read for June, what you're reading for July, your thoughts on any of the books I read. If you like this video, don't forget to hit a like button, subscribe down below, and I will see y'all all next time. Bye!